"Can you hide me from my daddy?" The tiny voice, barely a whisper, sliced through the thick, throbbing hum of powerful motorcycle engines, stark and unnatural, like a fresh wound. 12 hardened members of the Devil's Outcasts motorcycle club, men whose lives were etched with scars and shadowed by unspeakable deeds, turned in unison. There, illuminated by the harsh glare of a single bare bulb swinging precariously overhead, stood a 6-year-old girl. She clutched a bright pink backpack, almost comically large, a vibrant splash of innocence in their grimy, metal-scented garage. The digital clock on the dusty workbench glowed 2 a.m. This wasn't just any garage. It was a fortress, buried deep in the desolate heart of nowhere, surrounded by miles of untamed wilderness. Yet, this small, determined child had somehow navigated their formidable security perimeter. An impossible feat raiser, the club president, a man whose face was a roadmap of past skirmishes and whose eyes held the weary wisdom of too many dark nights, was the first to move. He approached slowly, his heavy boots crunching softly on scattered gravel. His voice, usually a guttural rumble, softened almost imperceptibly. "What's your name, sweetheart?" "Emma." Her voice wavered, a fragile leaf in a storm, but her small shoulders were squared. "Emma Rodriguez." She took a deep, shuddering breath. "My daddy's coming to get me, and I don't want to go." "Where's your mommy?" It was Chains, the club's enforcer, a hulking figure whose very presence could curdle blood, who asked. His gaze was surprisingly gentle. "Mommy's sleeping in heaven with the angels. Daddy said so." Emma's eyes welled, overflowing with tears that traced clean paths down her smudged cheeks. "But I think Daddy made her go to sleep. She had red stuff on her head before she went to heaven." A chilling silence descended upon the garage. The rhythmic dripping of an old oil pan was suddenly amplified. The bikers exchanged grim, knowing glances. Every man present, from the quietest mechanic to the most notorious brawler, had witnessed enough raw, brutal violence to understand precisely what red stuff on her head meant, especially when uttered by a child. A cold knot formed in Razor's stomach. "Emma, how did you get here?" Razor knelt, his scarred face level with hers, trying to project a calm he didn't quite feel. "I followed the highway's broken white line for what felt like all night," she whispered, her gaze fixed on something beyond him. "Mommy showed me the way once when we drove past. She said if anything really bad happened, I should find the scary-looking people who fight monsters." She unzipped her pink backpack with surprising precision, revealing its contents. "I brought snacks for the journey and Mommy's phone." She paused, her tiny hands trembling as they delved deeper. And a new, more terrifying light flickered in her eyes. Something else. What she pulled out next caused every biker in that garage to go utterly, profoundly cold. It was a kitchen knife, its blade dulled but unmistakably encrusted with dried, dark blood. "Daddy was hurting Mommy with this, so I took it," Mommy said. "If anything bad happened, I should take evidence." Emma looked up, her innocent eyes wide and trusting. "Is this evidence?" Before anyone could formulate an answer, Emma produced another item, a small, unassuming digital camera, followed by a tiny flash drive dangling from a vibrant Hello Kitty keychain. "Mommy taught me to take pictures when Daddy got mean," she explained, her voice gaining a strange, almost clinical resolve. "She said the police wouldn't believe us without lots and lots of proof, because Daddy was good at pretending to be nice." Her tiny fingers, still smudged with dirt from her long journey, expertly worked the camera buttons. "And she said this little computer thing was super important. She hid it in my backpack and said if anything happened to her, I should give it to the police." The first photo flashed onto the camera's small screen. A woman, Emma's mother, with a dark, purpling black eye that marred her otherwise beautiful face. The second showed angry bruises blossoming on her arms, vivid against pale skin. The third made the hardened bikers flinch, causing several to turn away, unable to stomach the raw brutality. There were 47 photos in total, meticulously dated, stretching back months. Each one a horrifying testament to escalating violence, each worse than the last. "Where's your daddy now, Emma?" Razor's voice, when it came, was deadly quiet, a low growl that promised swift retribution. Emma hugged her pink backpack tighter, burying her face into its soft fabric. "He went to meet his work friends, the scary men with the fast cars and guns." Her voice was muffled, laced with a new layer of fear. "He said when he comes back, we're going on a long trip where nobody will find us, but I don't want to go. He scares me, and he made Mommy go to sleep forever." It was then they heard it, the distant rumble of multiple car engines, low at first, then growing steadily louder, more insistent, cutting through the night. Headlights, stark and unforgiving, swept across the garage entrance, bathing the interior in a brief, blinding flash. "Not one car, 3. That's Daddy's friends," Emma whispered, pure, unadulterated terror twisting her small face. She scrambled behind Razor, pressing herself against his leg. "Please don't let them take me." Note to reader: please consider subscribing for more stories like this. What happens next will shock you even more. Emma's father, a hulking shadow against the headlights, stumbled out of the lead car. He was drunk, his face contorted with rage, a glint of metal in his hand, a gun. But he wasn't alone. 2 other men emerged from the shadows, their movements fluid, professional, dangerous. These were not mere thugs. These were cartel. "Emma, get out here right now," he screamed, his voice slurred but thick with menace. "You took something that doesn't belong to you." Without a word, the bikers spread out, their movements seamless, practiced. 12 hardened criminals, their faces set, their bodies tensed, formed a protective semicircle. Facing them were 3 armed men, but the true vulnerability was the small child cowering in their midst. "She took the ledger," Emma's father shrieked, addressing his associates. "The little bitch has the flash drive." "Sir, you need to calm down," Razor called out, his voice steady, commanding, betraying no fear. "Don't tell me what to do. That drive has our entire operation on it. Names, dates, money transfers. If the cops get it." One of the cartel men, his face a cold, impassive mask, raised his weapon, leveling it at the bikers. "We don't leave witnesses." "Daddy, I don't want to go with you." Emma's voice, barely above a whisper, rose from behind Razor's leg, a fragile plea against the storm. "You little brat. You don't understand what you've done. Give me that drive or we're all dead." Her father's face was purple with fury. That's when Emma did something that stunned everyone, freezing the unfolding conflict for a split second. She stepped out from behind Razor, all 4 feet of her, small but resolute, facing down 3 armed men. "You hurt Mommy," she said, her voice small at first, but gaining strength with each word, steeling itself. "You made her go to sleep forever. And now the police are going to know about all the bad things you do to people." Her father's face twisted, contorting into a mask of pure, unadulterated rage. "You cost us everything. I should have gotten rid of you the same night as your mother." He never finished the sentence. What happened next lasted exactly 90 seconds. The bikers moved as a single, coordinated military unit, a blur of leather and muscle. There were no shouts, just the sickening thud of impacts, the sharp crack of zip ties, and the heavy fall of unconscious bodies. When it was over, all 3 men lay motionless on the garage floor, bound and incapacitated. Emma, however, didn't cheer or cower. She simply walked over to the nearest unconscious man and, with 2 small fingers, precisely retrieved the gun from his lax grip, just as her mother had subtly taught her to handle dangerous things. "This goes to the police too," she whispered, her voice steady as steel, her eyes reflecting the cold fluorescent light. "More evidence." She looked up at Razor, her gaze unwavering. "Is it over? Are the bad men going to jail forever and ever?" Razor picked up the digital camera and the tiny flash drive. 47 photos of brutal domestic violence, a murder weapon with incriminating fingerprints, irrefutable evidence of a massive cartel money laundering operation, and 12 outlaw bikers as witnesses to attempted child abduction with firearms. He met Emma's gaze, a profound weariness mixed with fierce protectiveness in his own eyes. "Yeah, sweetheart," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "It's over." But it wasn't. The local sheriff and his deputies arrived 20 minutes later, their faces grim as they processed the scene. Emma's father and his associates were swiftly charged with first-degree murder, child endangerment, attempted kidnapping, and running a vast criminal organization. The flash drive, once a mere Hello Kitty trinket, proved to be a digital treasure trove, containing 3 years of meticulously detailed cartel financial records that would dismantle a significant portion of their operation. Emma, however, still had nowhere to go. "She's got an aunt in California," the social worker, a stern woman named Margaret Stevens, said, her voice clipped and professional. "But it'll take time to arrange custody transfer, and with the cartel connections, she might not be safe there anyway." "She's staying with us," Razor announced, his voice flat and non-negotiable. Margaret Stevens, a seasoned professional in her 50s who had seen every trick in the book, eyed the leather-clad bikers. They stood surrounding Emma, a protective pack of wolves around a fragile lamb. "Mr. Rodriguez, you're the president of an outlaw motorcycle club with multiple felony convictions. The state will never approve you as a guardian." "Then the state's got a problem," Razor replied, his gaze unwavering, a challenge in his eyes. "Because she chose us and we're not giving her up." What followed was the most unlikely and fiercely contested custody battle in state history. Margaret Stevens, initially, became Emma's temporary guardian, but Emma adamantly refused to leave the clubhouse. For 3 weeks, she slept on a makeshift cot in the meeting room, attended by 12 former criminals who, for all their street smarts, had absolutely no idea how to care for a traumatized 6-year-old. The first major crisis struck on day 4. Emma had been unusually quiet all morning, her breakfast barely touched. Snake, one of the more introspective bikers, found her in the garage, sitting silently next to his gleaming Harley, tears streaming silently down her small face. "What's wrong, little warrior?" Snake knelt beside her, his rough voice surprisingly gentle. "I miss Mommy," Emma whispered, her voice thick with sorrow, "and I'm scared the bad dreams are going to come back." Snake looked around helplessly. These weren't problems he could solve with fists or intimidation. Then, a long-forgotten memory resurfaced, something his own grandmother used to do when he was scared as a kid. "You know what? When I was about your age, my granny taught me something special," she said. "When you miss someone who's gone to heaven, you gotta talk to them out loud so they can hear you from up there." Emma looked up at him, her eyes red-rimmed and hopeful. "Really? Really? Really?" Snake affirmed, his gaze sweeping over the other bikers who had, without a word, quietly gathered around them, their intimidating presence softened by genuine concern. "And she said the best place to do it is somewhere that makes you feel safe, like right here with all your uncles around." He gestured with a large, tattooed hand. "Want to try?" Emma nodded, a barely audible whisper. Then, she began, her voice gaining strength with each word, directed upward, into the vast, unknown sky. "Hi, Mommy. I'm okay now. The scary men took care of the bad man just like you said they would, and they're teaching me how to be brave like you were." There wasn't a dry eye in that garage. The first night, Emma woke up screaming, her small body thrashing, lost in nightmares of her father. Chains, a mountain of a man with teardrops tattooed under his eyes, a grim tally of lives lost or taken, was the first to reach her. The sight of this terrifying enforcer, known for breaking bones and spirits, awkwardly trying to comfort a sobbing 6-year-old would have been comical if it wasn't so profoundly heartbreaking. "Hey, little warrior," he rumbled, his voice softer than anyone had ever heard it, a velvet whisper from granite. "You're safe now. The monsters can't get you here. But what if they come back?" Emma sobbed, clinging to him. Chains looked around desperately. Then, with a sigh that seemed to deflate his massive frame, sat down heavily on the edge of her small bed. "Well, see, here's the thing about monsters. They're real scared of bigger monsters. And sweetheart, we're the biggest monsters in this whole state, so they ain't coming near you ever again." Emma stopped crying, her wide, tear-filled eyes fixed on his formidable face. "Promise?" "I promise." Chain's voice was firm, absolute. "And you know what? If you get scared again, you just call for Uncle Chains and I'll come running. Even if I'm sleeping, even if I'm in the shower, even if I'm in the middle of fixing my bike, you call and I come. That's what family does." That moment changed everything, not just for Emma, but for every man in that clubhouse. They were no longer just a club. They were becoming something far more profound. But the real test came 2 weeks later when Emma got sick with a fever. 12 hardened criminals became frantic nursemaids overnight. "Should we take her to the hospital?" Tank asked, pacing nervously, his massive frame radiating anxiety. "It's just a fever," Doc said. But his voice was uncertain, his brow furrowed with worry. "I think you think?" Razor's voice was deadly, a low warning. "That's not good enough." They took turns staying awake all night, a rotating guard of imposing figures, checking her temperature every hour, their faces etched with concern. Chains sat by her bed, his gravelly voice surprisingly soothing as he stumbled through children's books. Snake brought her tiny chips of ice, holding the cup gently. Demon, whose real name was actually David, a man usually silent and menacing, quietly sang lullabies he remembered from his own forgotten childhood. When Emma's fever finally broke the next morning, she awoke to find all 12 bikers asleep in chairs around her bed, their postures awkward and slumped. Empty coffee cups and children's medicine bottles were scattered everywhere, testament to their vigil. "You all stayed with me?" she asked softly, her voice still weak. Razor slowly opened his eyes, a tired but gentle smile touching his lips. "Of course we did, sweetheart. That's what daddies and uncles do." Margaret Stevens watched this remarkable transformation unfold with a professional skepticism that, slowly but surely, began to yield to genuine amazement. These men, these notorious criminals, were learning to braid hair, patiently help with homework, and lovingly read bedtime stories. They child-proofed their notorious clubhouse, stocking juice boxes right next to their beer, and discovered that Disney movies could be just as captivating as the most explosive action flicks. The clubhouse itself, once a shadowy den for planning illegal activities, was utterly transformed, morphing into a vibrant, chaotic, yet undeniably loving home. Emma's colorful drawings now covered the walls where wanted posters used to hang. Her small bed, a beacon of innocence, sat tucked into the corner of the meeting room, surrounded by 12 sleeping bags, because the uncles, without fail, took turns keeping watch every single night. Still, Margaret Stevens wasn't fully convinced. 3 months into their unconventional arrangement, she scheduled a series of surprise visits, determined to catch them unprepared. She arrived one Tuesday afternoon, unannounced, to find the entire club gathered around Emma, all earnestly helping her with a school project about families. "What makes a family special?" Emma was reading, her voice clear, from her homework sheet. "Protection," Chains immediately grunted, his answer simple and absolute. "Love," Snake added, surprising everyone, even himself. "Being there when someone needs you," Tank contributed, his voice deep and sincere. "Teaching right from wrong," Demon said, nodding gravely. Emma wrote down each answer carefully, her small brow furrowed in concentration. "What about you, Daddy Razor?" Razor looked around at his brothers, then back at Emma, his gaze softening, filled with a depth of emotion Margaret had never thought possible for such a man. "A family is when a bunch of broken people decide they're stronger together, and they'll do anything to keep each other safe." Margaret Stevens felt her professional skepticism crack a little more, like ice under immense pressure. But the legal system, rigid and unyielding, wasn't so easily impressed. "Your Honor," the state's attorney argued vehemently in family court 6 weeks later, his voice sharp and accusatory. "These men are dangerous criminals. They solve problems with violence. This child needs stability and proper role models, not to be raised in an outlaw biker clubhouse." "Your Honor," Razor's court-appointed lawyer countered, her voice calm and firm. "These men risked their lives to save this child. They've provided her with more love and security in 6 weeks than she'd known in her entire life. a home where she is cherished and protected. The judge, a stern woman named Patricia Williams, known for her no-nonsense demeanor and sharp intellect, looked down at Emma. The little girl sat perfectly still between razor and chains in the front row, a tiny figure of quiet strength. "Emma, do you understand what's happening here today?" Emma stood, her small stature belying her immense composure. "Yes, ma'am. Some people think my new family is too scary to take care of me. But they don't understand that sometimes the scariest-looking people have the biggest hearts." "And you want to stay with Mr. Rodriguez?" Judge Williams probed gently. "He's my daddy now," Emma said simply, her voice unwavering. "And all the uncles protect me. They keep the monsters away." Judge Williams studied the extensive case file before her. Character references from teachers, doctors, even the local sheriff. Emma's grades had dramatically improved. Her terrifying nightmares had significantly decreased. She was not just surviving, she was thriving. But what truly sealed the decision, what truly swayed the formidable judge, was Emma's final, unexpected statement. "Your Honor, I started a club at the clubhouse. It's called Little Warriors. It's for kids like me who've seen bad things. We meet every Saturday, and I teach them what Mommy taught me. How to be brave, how to take pictures when grown-ups are mean, and how to find safe people who will protect you." Judge Williams slowly turned her gaze to Margaret Stevens. "Ms. Stevens, what is your recommendation?" Margaret Stevens, who had dedicated her entire career to placing children in traditional, conventional homes, took a deep, steadying breath. Her voice, usually so detached and professional, was laced with a newfound wonder. "Your Honor, in 30 years of social work, I've never seen a child heal as completely, as profoundly, as Emma has in the past 3 months. These men, against all odds, have created something I didn't think was possible. A stable, loving home that also acknowledges the reality of the dangerous world we live in. Emma doesn't just feel safe, Your Honor. She feels empowered. My recommendation is to grant permanent custody to Mr. Rodriguez." The gavel came down with a decisive thud. Custody granted. The courtroom erupted. The 12 bikers cheered like their team had just won the Super Bowl, their roars echoing off the high ceilings. Emma, tears of joy streaming down her face, launched herself into Razor's arms, calling him Daddy, for the very first time in a public setting. Margaret Stevens, a woman who rarely showed emotion, subtly wiped away a tear she hadn't even realized she was crying. That night, the Devil's Outcasts threw the biggest, most raucous party in their club's history. Not because they'd beaten the system, though they certainly had, but because they had become something far better, something more profound and purposeful than they had ever thought possible. Emma kept her pink backpack, but now its contents were different. It held coloring books, vibrant crayons, emergency contact cards for scared children, and a disposable camera, specifically for kids who needed to document abuse but lacked a digital one. She carried it to school every day, a silent, ready shield, prepared to help any child who might need what she had needed on that terrifying night. A year later, Little Warriors had grown to 32 children. The Devil's Outcasts, those feared outlaws, now found themselves running background checks on deadbeat dads, teaching self-defense classes to vulnerable mothers, and, remarkably, becoming the unofficial child protection service for 3 counties. The local police, once their adversaries, now occasionally called them for domestic violence cases where traditional methods had failed, and the club boasted an astonishing 100% success rate. Emma is 10 now. She still wants to be a police officer when she grows up, a living testament to her unwavering courage. She still calls Razor Daddy, and she has 11 fierce uncles who would, without a second's hesitation, die for her. And every year, on the anniversary of the night she walked into their garage, they celebrate not what they did for her, but what she did for them. Because Emma, the tiny girl with the pink backpack, taught them that the most broken people can become the best protectors. That family isn't about blood or clean records, and that sometimes the most dangerous men make the gentlest fathers. The flash drive that saved Emma's life, now a vital piece of evidence, sits securely in FBI storage, its data having helped convict a sprawling cartel cell. The harrowing photos that documented her mother's abuse ensured her father, and his associates face justice. And Emma's pink backpack, a symbol of hope and defiance, goes everywhere she does. A constant reminder that some battles require preparation, some journeys need snacks, and some little girls carry the courage to change the entire world. If this story moved you like it moved us, hit subscribe and the bell icon, because stories like Emma's remind us that heroes come in all sizes, and hope can be found in the most unexpected places.